All right, Algebra 1A students. Welcome to part 1 of lesson 2.4. We're continuing our work in chapter 2 on solving equations, and today's equations are going to have variables on both sides of the equal sign. So it changes just a little bit what we have to do first, okay? It just adds another step before we get to solving these equations, okay? So let's look at this example here, and we'll talk through the 3 steps that I want you to write down for solving equations with variables on both sides, okay? So here they tell us 5x plus 2 equals 2x plus 14. Now, the first thing we have to realize is that we have variable terms, x terms, on both sides of the equal sign. And that's no good if we're trying to solve or isolate that variable. We're trying to get it all by itself. So the very first thing we have to do is move all of the x terms to the same side, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the smaller of the two x terms because they're both positive, and I'm going to get rid of this term and move it over to the other side. It's currently a positive 2x here, so I undo a positive 2x by subtracting 2x. So I subtract 2x, and then I also subtract 2x on the other side. Now the important thing here, the very, very, very important thing is that I'm going to subtract the 2x away from the 5x, right? I'm not subtracting it from the 2 because this 2 does not have an x. So I can only subtract what we call like terms, remember, okay? Like terms. So 5x take away 2x. I now have 3 x's on this side. It still says plus 2, still equal to 14 over here because obviously my 2 x's went away. And now this is like an equation that we can solve, right? I need to move the numbers away from the x here. I need to move the plus 2 to the other side. So again, the opposite of plus 2 will be minus 2. And I end up with 3x equals 12. And then I need to isolate my x variable by dividing. So I will divide this by 3 to cancel out the 3's. Divide that by 3. X equals 4. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, so there's my 3 steps. Step 1 is move all the x terms to one side, or all the variable terms. It could be any letter, right? X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Move those variable terms all to one side by subtracting, if it's positive, or adding if it's a negative that you have to move over. Do the opposite of whatever the sign is in front of that term. Make sure that we do subtract or add it, combine it with the other variable term on the other side. And then you should have a 2-step equation that we can solve by undoing the plus or minus, move those numbers to the other side. In fact, let me change this to say other side. And then step 3 is just to isolate the variable by dividing. Okay? I'd like you to try here. I have this equation, 7k plus 2 equals 4k minus 10. I'd like you to follow your 3 steps. Move these 4k's to the other side, move the plus 2 to the other side, and then isolate the variable by dividing. When you have it done, think you have your answer, come on back and I'll show you what we should get. Your answer should be negative. Okay, so we end up with the equation that says 3k equals negative 12 when we subtract. So when we divide by 3, k ends up equaling negative 4. K equals negative 4. Right. If you have questions about solving equations with variables on both sides, please make a note to ask me in class tomorrow. Also, please be aware that we can do this in word problem style as well. Okay. For example, here I have a word problem that says it takes a graphic designer 1.5 hours to make one page of a website. Using new software, the designer could complete each page in 1.25 hours, but it takes 8 hours to learn the new software. Okay, so I can write an equation that says, well, the old software says 1.5 times the number of pages, right? It's 1.5 hours for each page. And they want to know how many web pages would the designer have to make in order to save time using the new software. So what I want to find is where are the two equal. So I'll set the old software 1.5 hours times the number of pages, equal to the new software 1.25 times the number of pages. But with that new software, remember it took us 8 total hours to learn the software, so I have to add that on as well. So now I have this equation, and I could solve this as well by moving this 1.25p term to the other side to be with the 1.5p, by subtracting. Subtract 1.25p, subtract 1.25p, and end up with 0.25p equals 8, and then I isolate by dividing. I end up with p equals 32. Okay, so we can see this in word problems as well, and then you'll have to write your own equations, but once we do, it's just these 3 steps, right? Just these 3 steps here. So if you have questions about these 3 steps, please make a note to ask me in class tomorrow. Otherwise, that's all I have for you. Have a wonderful night.